It was November of '07 when I actually got pulled over by city police. You know, they had 2 or 3 police cars there. But what essentially happened is he came up to the window and said, you know, asked me for my driver's license, insurance, and registration. And I actually told him, well, I don't have a driver's license. And he goes, yeah, that's why I stopped you. I'm not a corporation. And I do know that I'm not here to submit to other people's authority. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually testifying to him. I didn't need to tell him that I didn't have any of those documents. At that point, he then asked me, well, what's your name? Well, I told him, well, my friends call me Rob. I don't let a name define me, or I don't let a career define me. I'm not a name or a label. Again, I was testifying. I didn't have to disclose to him my identity, but it was enough information for him to make the link between that name and the name that he has jurisdiction over, which is the artificial person that was on the driver's license that was expired. And that was grounds enough for him to proceed with filing charges of driving without a driver's license. And he essentially gave me to the count of 3 to accept these, or he would continue filing more charges and tow the vehicle. And I finally accepted under, you know, I was extremely stressed out at that point because I didn't want to lose my property and that kind of stuff. So I accepted them and decided to deal with it through letters. Like if I was a judge, for example, and you walked in and claimed that you're sovereign, one of the things I'm going to look at is, okay, does this guy behave like a sovereign? Did he, you know, provide me with pre-notice and, you know, try to resolve the issue before it even came to court? And was he honorable in his communications and his interactions with people? So at that point, I started a letter campaign, writing letters to him to ask him, you know, for proof of claim of a whole bunch of things that he was claiming over me. And he essentially ignored all of those. So I showed up in court for the plea. Okay, now I know what the plea is all about, right? So I didn't go in there with all my books. I essentially went in there to essentially say, you know what, there is no harm done here. There's no cause for this court to be hearing. The judge wouldn't hear any of that. He kept asking me for the person, Robert Ernest Page, and I kept saying, well, I'm here on this behalf, because I'm not that person. I'm man. But he finally said to me, okay, you know what, I'm entering in a plea. Well, first off, that was probably a no-no on his part.
And he told me to plead guilty. But he said that from the facts of the case, it didn't look like I had a chance.
Then he told me, make sure that that person is in court. You know, I was still nervous, I was still shaken and that kind of stuff, but I left court excited because I successfully got the judge to recognize me for who I am, not as that artificial person. But I still have court to deal with. So when I got there, the Crown called me up, so I went up there. This was before the judge was there. And he asked me for my name. I didn't give him a name. I told him I'm a third-party intervener under injury because the artificial person's being called to court, not me. But I'm the one that was injured. I was stopped, which is an injury, detained for an hour and a half, and had to go through a whole bunch of letters and that kind of stuff. So he pointed to the ticket and then goes, well, is that you? And I told him, that is not me. And I think he was getting frustrated. He said, go sit down. So I went and sat down. All I know is that when they resumed court, they heard the rest of the cases, and then they called Robert Ernest Page up, and I stood up, and she turned to me and said, case dismissed on lack of evidence.
I move for an immediate dismissal. There's no sound basis for this case. There's not the slightest evidence.
That was tremendous feather in my cap because I was able to successfully stand as a man in front of them without them intimidating me and let them know that I know how this game works now.
Never a few men try to take over the rights of honest citizens. They always fail.
They sure do.